Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my quarterly writing wrap-up video for winter 2025. I make these videos about once a quarter to track my writing goals, of which I make three to follow each quarter, and if I don't meet them, a certain SEPTA will have to come visit me. I'm a little later already than I'd like with this video on a rainy, belated April day. Getting well into quarter number two, I guess it is, but there's no better time than the present to wrap up the past and get moving into the future. I have various sort of structured topics I talk about in this video, and you'll see the subject headings scrolling down the screen as such. So without further ado, let's get started. So the beginning of 2025 kind of feels like the hurry up and wait quarter. I made some decisions regarding my fantasy novel and the weird way I was both trying to write the end and revise the beginning for different writing groups at the same time. I decided that I didn't want to put as much energy into the revisions that I need to before I actually finished a draft. And I was really getting a lot of wonderful but challenging feedback at my SFF affinity group that's part of my writing salon about, making some significant changes to the beginning of the novel. But I didn't really want to put all that effort into overhauling before I at least finished one complete draft. And so I decided the best way to go about focusing my writing time on finishing the draft was to take a step back from my SFF affinity group, which tends to meet once a month. So for the past couple of months, I haven't been going to that, and I have been slowly eking my way through chapter 45, which turns out to be a little bit longer of a chapter than I hoped it would on my fantasy novel. I'm in chapter 45 of 48 chapters in my outline. At least my outline hasn't grown from 48 chapters since the last time. Maybe in part because I haven't been rewriting the beginning. But anyway, I am also sharing that end of my novel with another writing group, my beta reading group. We've been slowing down a little bit for the past year or so, or at least several months. We do have tentative communication right now about meeting in late April. Some of us have things to share. And my goal is to submit chapter 45 to them, which I still have to finish. I'm almost finished with drafting it, and of course I'd like to polish it at least a little bit before I send it off, but they've also been a really great and helpful group. But yeah, that's kind of broad strokes where I am with my fantasy novel. After I finish chapter 45, I will have three more chapters left. They will be Act 3 chapters. They will be, climax and descending resolution, getting my plot words mixed up. But anyway, I actually think and hope and assume they will be shorter, hopefully quicker to write, although that's not been my MO with this project, being quick to write things, but I'm tentatively hopeful that really the horizon will be in sight very, very soon. So this is my journey with my fantasy novel. I'll take a brief step back from discussing fantasy to do a quick shout out to my favorite blog posts of the quarter. Another one of my big writing projects is that I maintain 3 blogs where I tend to write at least 1 post per month on each of them. So I'm going to start with my Jewish DC blog, where I chronicle events happening in, Jewish DC. And a couple of months ago, I went to the Capitol Jewish Museum's special exhibit. I try to go to every new special exhibit as it comes. And this one was called Juice. It's about comics. And so my title was, it tracks comics from Yiddish cartoons to Krypton and beyond. And this was an interesting exhibit because I tend to think of exhibits as being dynamic, and it's like fun to find, the parts that are more interactive, but in truth, this exhibit wasn't all that interactive. I mean, there was a chance to write your own or create your own storyboards, but mostly you were looking at placards on the wall, which were filled to the brim with really intriguing, exciting information about, the Jewish influence in comics, starting from, Yiddish writers, doing cartoons back in the 1800s, in the late 1800s. And then, of course, there's some nods to, what became the big comic books in, Marvel and DC. And then how, in more modern, even more modern ages, how graphic novels came in, how stories changed over time, how World War II was a big influence on the superheroes. There was just packed full stuff in this exhibit, and so I tried to distill it as best I could in the journal entry and the blog entry. And, well, I did say that it wasn't all that interactive, but maybe my favorite interactive part came at the very end, because there was an actual couch set up with tons of graphic novels and comic books for, visitors of all ages, and I really kind of wish I got a chance to just sit down and curl up and read some of those. Next, in my Chava's Footsteps blog, this is a blog where I talk about general, broader pop culture or broader Jewish culture as well. It's sort of a, catch-all for those topics. In this post, I actually, a lot of what I do in Chava's Footsteps is belatedly review television shows. I already have a bunch of television shows that have been, seasons have come and gone, and I still haven't read and reviewed them, but they're on my list. And at the very beginning of the year, I did 2 science fiction shows, and I decided to link them together because they both had something to do with Rebecca Ferguson, the actress. That's because one of the shows was the first season of Dune Prophecy, which is a prequel show to the Dune franchise where Rebecca Ferguson starred in the latest movie adaptations. And then the other TV show was Silo, which is a post-apocalyptic TV show, which takes place basically in a silo underground, and Rebecca Ferguson is the star of that show as well. So I reviewed those shows. I had fun reviewing them, but I don't think either of them were really favorite shows of mine. But anyway, it was still fun to, link them together in a silly way. And it's, I do have fun writing about television shows, although it feels like lately I've had more trouble getting back into that. And I hope to get my act together. Hopefully I'll have something new to share in this topic, I assume, next quarter or in upcoming quarters. We shall see. Finally, in my reading and writing blog, maybe appropriately, I talk a little bit more there about my writing progress, and I check in, I actually made a writing blog about a year ago about my goals, and so I wanted to check in about that. But another thing I wanted to do was address the shuttering of NaNoWriMo and sort of process some feelings about that, because I've been a Wrimo for about 21, 22 years, since very early days, and I've been on the journey as it went from sort of a smaller website run by Chris Beatty into a nonprofit, and now unfortunately the nonprofit is no more. So I don't know, I'm just trying to process my thoughts and see where I may go in the future with maybe continuing on this journey or adapting it somehow. But obviously it's a bit of a change for everyone, and certainly a fork in the road when it comes to public writing life, because Nano had gotten to be so big, and unfortunately, I don't know, I obviously have a lot of, thoughts to continue to parse through with these developments. But my quarterly and continual writing goals are still in play, and now I have to go ahead and own up to my winter 2025 goals recap. So here we go, everyone. I'm going to start with goal number 1, which was to finish my final 4 chapters of my fantasy novel, which, as I've already mentioned, I have barely made it through chapter 45, and I have chapters 46, 47, and 48 left to do, so no, I did not. Goal number 2 was to move on from my chapter 6 rewrite. Still have miles to go here, which had to do with the fact that last year, for a few sessions at the SFF Affinity group, I was writing and rewriting chapter 6 for that group, and also splitting it into 2 chapters and all sorts of things, and I wanted to be able to move on from it. And I actually think I did move on and share chapter 7 with them as well, and then I got overwhelmed by everything I'd have to change in chapter 7, and that's part of when I made my decision to, maybe put the revisions of my fantasy novel on the back burner, but I can say that I have moved past chapter 6 in those rewrites. That has happened. And finally, goal number 3 was to spend 3 times a week at the Writers' Hour, which is another writing group which I engage with online. It's from the London Writers' Hour. They have various Writers' Hours over Zoom per week. And I have gone to a few of them, more than I did last quarter even, I think, but not consistently enough. So...
Shame. Shame. Shame.
Well, I already brought up NaNoWriMo for another sort of literary institution the SEPTA might want to shame, or certainly there seems to be a lot of politics going on lately as well. I kind of wonder if people might dress up as her at protests, but I guess that's a little outside of the milieu. But the future may always be redemptive, as I have new goals to share for my spring 2025 goals announcement. May it at least help me continue forward on my writing journey. So here we go. Here's what I hope to accomplish this next quarter. Goal number 1, I guess appropriately, is final 3 chapters, because I'm just slowly inching through my completion of the first draft of my fantasy novel. And I really do feel like this one is more doable. I think these chapters will go quicker and be quicker, knock on wood. I do technically still have to finish chapter 45 as well, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be pretty quick as well. At least that one I'll finish, but now I want to really push myself to finish the rest of it too. Goal number 2 is to fully dive into Asao Draft 2. Asao is my fantasy novel, and it's just sort of the next thing after this, isn't it? Just to say, once I finally finish Draft 1, I can, go back to my rewriting, which is more or less my Draft 2, technically speaking. Some chapters I've revised and revised a lot, and some I haven't, and some are, I haven't technically written yet, but I'm just going to call, Draft 2 my definitive. All of Draft 1 is written, but yeah, I just want to go back to editing, and I, want to keep making progress with this project. And finally, goal number 3 is 3 writing groups, regular attendance. So yeah, I've mentioned all 3 of the writing groups. I've put my SFF Affinity group on hold, but once I'm through with my definitive first draft of the fantasy project, I can go back to that. I also have my beta reading group, which hopefully we will remain active ourselves. I mean, at least we should be meeting. I really hope we'll be meeting. I think we'll be meeting at the end of April, and hopefully maybe one more time in the quarter at least. We'll have to see. But as long as we are active, I definitely want to take part in this group. And then the third one is the Writers' Hour put on by the London Writers' Salon. They are a big and diligent group themselves. I don't assume that there's any chance that they're going to be scaling back their offerings, so I should take advantage of them because otherwise I do most of my writing at the Writing Salon, my in-person DC Writers' Salon a couple of times a week, but I should up my writing practice. That's the only way to actually ever finish a project, I think. Honestly, this fantasy project has been the longest thing I've worked on ever. It's certainly the longest manuscript I've ever worked on. It's like over 115,000 words right now. So anyway, I'm overwhelmed, I get it, but the only way to go is to keep going forward. So that about covers it for me now. I'll leave links to all 3 writing groups down below in case you are interested, and of course I'll have my blog post links down below as well. I will be back on this channel pivoting into my TBR videos. I have a couple I want to play this month for my reading. The first one will be my BookTube Spin, which is a quarterly game I play where I put 20 books on a list and then spin to see which one I will be reading this quarter, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Keep writing, and I'll see you next time.